Maybe it's the calm before the storm. What's the storm? Could be the calm before the storm.
What storm, Mr. President?
You'll find out.
The thing they will remember from the COVID crisis is this is the moment when everything went digital. And if this was the moment when everything became monitored. That we agreed to be surveyed all the time, not just in authoritarian regimes, but even in democracies. And maybe most importantly at all, this was the moment when surveillance started going under the skin.
We have built tiny electronic chips that can travel through the body fluids to autonomously implant in target brain regions and treat diseases which are even resistant to drugs. These electronics seamlessly integrate into the brain, forming unique brain-computer symbiosis and completely eliminate the need for surgery. To achieve this, we developed nanoelectronics at wafer scale and then lifted them off the substrate to create free-floating, subcellular-sized wireless electronic chips with record power conversion efficiency. Then we have attached these electronic chips with living biological cells to create unique cell electronics hybrids, which fuses the versatility of electronics with the biological prowess of living cells. These hybrids can be placed inside the body with a simple injection in the arms. And they can travel seamlessly through the body fluids without being attacked by the immune system. These hybrids enable the first demonstration of electronics which can even cross the intact blood-brain barrier and autonomously recognize a target disease region in the brain and self-implant there. These electronics provide precise electrical stimulation of the brain, enabling surgery-free brain-computer symbiosis for transcending humans beyond diseases and biological limitations. So now, it is possible to have an implant in a precise disease location in the brain with just a simple injection in the arms. While existing implants can cause massive destruction of brain tissue around it, our tiny nanoelectronic devices we have shown can co-live and coexist with the brain cells without causing any damage or toxic effects. It can be used for even healthy individuals. Just like we have wearables for all, we can even have implantables for healthy. It can be used for applications such as cognitive enhancement, for improving decision making, or even increasing our neural density through synthetic electronic neurons.
And he causes all, both small and great, and rich and poor, and free and slave, to be given a mark upon their right hand or upon their foreheads, and that no one should be able to buy or sell except he that has the mark, or the name of the beast, or the number of his name. Here is the wisdom. He who has understanding, let him calculate the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man, and his number is Chi, Xi, Stigma. We have seen in our previous studies that the mark of the beast is multifaceted. In its symbol form, as we just seen, the letters Chi, Xi, Stigma represent the serpent wrapped around a tree. This is the symbol for pharmakeia, but also is the symbol for the Nakashtan, the serpent on a pole, the Nakash on a pole. the symbol of the curse. This curse was first placed on Mount Ebal in Scripture, and the first person ever mentioned to be hung on a tree was the sovereign of Ai, showing that Ai is the curse. When Yochanan John said by pharmakeia the nations were deceived, the nations are represented by Eve in Genesis, who was the mother of all nations. Eve was deceived by the Nakash, just as the nations are being deceived by pharmakeia, the symbol of the Nakash. The second part of the mark describes it, or gives us the characteristics. If you use the letters chi, xi, sigma in Euler's principle, you will find x equals v minus e plus f. Chi being x, v being xi, and e plus f is sigma and tau, the letters that make up the word stigma, or the letter stigma. This gives us the answer of 160, or rho xi in Greek, which is Rx in English, the symbol for pharmacy. But also the formula is used for describing polyhedrons. This one in particular with 60 vertices, 200 edges, and 300 faces, an impossible shape. The shape that it describes is a Buckminster fullerene, otherwise known as a buckyball, which just so happens to be in the shape of a soccer ball.
Господину президенту этот мяч передать, теперь мяч на
Mr.
его
President,
стороне.
I'll give this ball to you, and now the ball is in your court.
These hybrids can be placed inside the body with a simple injection in the arms, and they can travel seamlessly through the body fluids without being attacked by the immune system.
In great contrast to the mark of the beast is the mark of Yahweh. This is represented by the word oath in Hebrew, and it is spelled Aleph, Ua, Ta. This has the odiote meaning of Yahweh and man in covenant. Also, the letters Aleph and Ta represent the word, since from Aleph to Ta is the entire Hebrew alphabet. This also means man that has the word in him. The mark of the beast is commonly translated as 666. This would be Ua, Ua, Ua. No more Aleph and Tav in Hebrew. This is man separated from Yahweh and Yahweh's covenant. Man trying to do things on his own. Man outside of the protection of Yahweh. Like Yasharal when Yahweh forsook them in the first temple and they were utterly destroyed. The hand of Yahweh is the restrainer of evil, as Scripture will show us. When Yahuwah removes his hand and man is left alone, ruin will come. What will man be like without a conscience? Man is about to learn a great lesson, the greatest lesson of all. What happens when what you create no longer does what you command it to do? What happens when the clay says, I am now the potter? There were two trees in the Garden of Eden, the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, and the tree of Kai, the Hebrew word for life. Bereshith Genesis 2:8. And Yahuwah Elohim planted a garden in Eden to the east, and there he put the man whom he formed. And out of the ground Yahuwah Elohim made every tree that is pleasant to the sight and good for food, with the tree of life in the midst of the garden, and the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Man had a choice, but he disobeyed the commandment that said, do not eat of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Man was given an opportunity to eat from the tree of life, but chose disobedience instead of the promise of Elohim. And Yahuwah Elohim commanded the man, saying, eat of every tree of the garden, but do not eat of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, for in the day that you eat of it, you shall certainly die. He told him not to eat of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. He never said not to eat from the tree of life. Yahusha is the tree of life, the righteous word of the Most High. For man chose disobedience than to follow his word. The serpent tells us what this tree really was. Bereshith Genesis 3:5. For Elohim knows that in the day you eat of it, your eyes shall be opened, and you shall be like Elohim, knowing good and evil. This tree gives man the knowledge of Elohim, removing the covering of Yahuwah. Thus they became naked. In contrast to that tree is the tree of Chai, which is the covering of Yahuwah. That covering is given to man through the belief in Yahusha and obedience to the commands. Now let's look at those trees in the audio. This was shared with me by my helper, my beloved wife. AI is the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. It gives man the knowledge of absolutely everything, to know all things, to open the mind of man, giving him enlightenment, opening the eye inside of the mind, merging with technology. AncientHebrew.org shows the word AI not spelled as AI, but instead with Gain and Yod, meaning ruin. This means a twisted work, since the letter Gain means twisted, wicked, and evil. A structure that has been demolished, ruin, a heap of ruins. Gain is the 23rd Hebrew letter, the fallen letter. This letter is in the shape of twisted ropes or twisted serpents. It means twisted, dark, wicked, evil, afflict. It is the left eye to Ayin. You can see this letter in words like Gomorrah and Gaza, written in Greek with gamma, showing that there was an Hebrew letter, Gain. Genesis 19:9 has both Gaza and Gomorrah written in the Hebrew text. Also, Gerar, which we know how to pronounce. Now, if you go down, you'll see it in Hebrew. You'll see right here it is written Gerar right here, which is at Gerar, and then you see where's Gaza? As far as Gaza, right here, which is they're saying Aza. Alright, in Genesis 10:19, you see Gerar, Gaza, Gomorrah. Alright, now notice in the actual Hebrew text, you have Gerar right here, spelled with Gimel, but Aza, which is Gaza, is spelled with Ayin, Aza, because the fallen letter has been taken away, but we still see the remnants of this letter. And in the audio, this would mean separation, wickedness separated from the spirit, which is what hell it really is. And then Gomorrah would be down here, Amorah. See that? Amorah. But it actually is Gomorrah, pronounced Gomorrah. Now in the Septuagint, you can see these words. This is Gerar right here. Notice that it's spelled with gamma. All right. Now you go down to Gaza again, gamma, making the G sound, gamma, and that is alpha, Gaza. Now you go down to Gomorrah, same thing, Gomorrah, showing proof that there was a fallen letter, Gain, at one time. Gain is in the exact shape of the serpent wrapped around the tree, the Nakash, the symbol for pharmakeia. This number 23 we have seen when you take Chazah stigma and you look at it in a mirror, it equals 23x. This is the number of the beast, the actual mark. This number is seen in everything that Hollywood does when they put their index finger and their thumb together and make this symbol. AI was spelled just as Gaza and Gomorrah. You can see this in the book of Yahusha, Joshua, chapter 7, verse 2. Notice here it says AI, but it's spelled with Gimel, Alpha, Iota, Guy. Now, this word is spelled in the same way as Gehenna, Gimel, Alpha, Iota. Notice AI and the word for Gehenna is identical. AI is the judgment. AI is Strong 5856. That means ruin. This word pronounced Guy by the Odio means wicked judgment. This can also mean an evil hand. And also it can mean twisted works. By their twisted works, they have brought about a wicked judgment and been placed into the hands of evil. Notice the word AI comes from Strong's 5856, which means ruin as in overturned. It comes from the Hebrew word avah. The word avah has the meaning of to make crooked, to do iniquity, to be perverse or pervert. This is to twist, do wickedly, to bend or twist. As we've seen, the word twist is summed up in the letter Gain, which means twisted. Gehenna begins with the same letters that AI begins with, and AI means wicked judgment. The word Gehenna in Greek is Strong's 1067, Gehenna. This word has the meaning of hell. It is used interchangeably with the word Sheol. Sheol means the grave or hell. Now, notice in Job 30:24, he says, "Howbeit, he will not stretch out his hand to the grave, though they cry in his destruction." The word here for grave is AI, bet AI, N-A-I. In the word Gehenom, you see the word Hanom, which is Strong's 2011. Now, the meaning of this, they say, is dubious. But many people believe it means wailing or cries from children, because they used to sacrifice children in this valley. Now, that goes along with what the Messiah said about Gehenom. Matthew 13:38, "And the field is the world, and the good seed. These are the sons of the rain, but the darnel are the sons of the wicked one. And the enemy who sowed them is the devil. And the harvest is the end of the age, and the reapers are the messengers. As the darnel then is gathered and burned in the fire, so shall it be at the end of this age. The son of Adam shall send out his messengers, and they shall gather out of his reign all the stumbling blocks and those doing lawlessness, and shall throw them into the furnaces of fire. There shall be wailing and gnashing of teeth." Man deceived by the promises of the serpent, eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Bereshith, Genesis 3:3. But of the fruit of the tree which is in the midst of the garden, Elohim has said, do not eat of it, nor touch it, lest you die. How do you eat knowledge? You eat it with the mind's eye, ayin. And how do you touch something? With the hand, yod. You can see this in Kason, Revelation 10:8. And the voice which I heard out of the heavens spoke to me again and said, go, take the little book which is opened in the hand of the messenger standing on the sea and on the earth. And I went to the messenger and said to him, give me the little book. And he said to me, take and eat it. And it shall make your stomach bitter, but it shall be sweet as honey in your mouth. And I took the little book out of the messenger's hand and ate it, and it was sweet as honey in my mouth. But when I had eaten it, my stomach was made bitter. Took the book and consumed the knowledge that was in it, just as Eve ate from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. The Nakash didn't offer it to Eve, saying, this will bring about a wicked judgment, that it would put you in the hands of evil. No, he said, and the Nakash said to the woman, you shall certainly not die, for Elohim knows that in the day you eat of it, your eyes shall be opened, and you shall be like Elohim, knowing good and evil. You see this in the audio for AI using the letter Ayin. This is the great deception, the greatest of all, that you can know everything and be like the Most High. Then the eyes of the both of them were opened, and they knew that they were naked, and they sewed fig leaves together and made loin coverings for themselves. Notice how a room is spelled in this passage. It's Ayin Yod Resh Mem. Ayin Yod is AI. This would have an audio meaning of the eye controlling the mind of the nations, or Eve. But ancienthebrew.org shows this spelled with Gain. This word would then be pronounced Garum and have a different meaning, meaning evil controlling the mind of the nations, or Eve. Also, since Gain represents the serpent wrapped around the tree, this would be the Nakash controlling the mind of Eve, or the nations. AI is a tree of the knowledge of good and evil. It gives man the knowledge of everything, to know all things, to open the mind of man, giving him enlightenment, opening the eye inside of the mind, merging with this technology. This is man trying to be like Elohim, trying to exalt himself above the Most High through disobedience. The clay is trying to be the potter. In contrast to that is the tree of life, represented by the Hebrew word Chai. This word means the covering of Yahweh. This is what is referred to as a crown, the crown of life. Yaakov, James 1:12. Blessed is the man who does endure trial, for when he has been proved, he shall receive the crown of life which the Master has promised to those who love him. Once again, you can see the man surrounded by the Ruach and protected by the hand of Yahweh in Yahweh's beautiful name. This is where you want to be, in the hand of Yahuwah. Yochanan John 10:28. And I give them everlasting life, and they shall by no means ever perish, and no one shall snatch them out of my hand. My Father who has given them to me is greater than all, and no one is able to snatch them out of my Father's hand. This is the tree of life in the hand of Yahweh.